Let's begin with your objection to what I had to say about Lamar Jackson yesterday. You said I was completely wrong. How and why am I completely wrong?
Well, because you're so emotional and that you somehow have a view that there is loyalty and that there was some sort of reason that could even be described as nefarious for what the Ravens have done with Lamar. And it is exactly in accordance with my show. It's just business. You are not going to sign any player because of what another owner has done mistakenly. You don't let one owner move a market. Go back to A-Rod when he signed with Texas for $252. There is natural creep in salary, but what's happened with NFL and quarterbacks is simply outrageous. And the NFL and the owners realize that it is not worth it to pay these quarterbacks these numbers. The Watson number specifically is what I'm talking about. And to me, you spent the time saying, well, Watson has that, therefore Jackson should too because he's an MVP, he's better. And why are teams coming out and saying they're not going to do it? Because they know what Jackson wants. Therefore, they're not going to get involved in trying to give him what he wants because no one is getting $230 guaranteed.
Well, that's collusion, and
no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
That's not the definition of collusion.
It's collusion.
You can use the word.
When all the owners are getting together saying we cannot give this to Lamar Jackson, it's collusion.
They're getting together with themselves. There's no meeting where they go through and say that we are going to not sign a player.
No, there's no group chat where they're just dragging Jimmy Haslam at every turn saying we have to stop this. No, you're right. Come on, man.
That's what collusion is. I am right.
Okay, look, David, you are consistently pro-management, and I am just hold on. Just let me finish. Just you had your say. I am consistently pro-labor. I enjoy more how Lamar Jackson, the business of Lamar Jackson, goes about making money than I do the people he's competing with in a system that they have to salary cap because they can't control themselves because there's always a Jimmy Haslam out there. And this is the perfect crossroads, David, perfect, where all of football's shit resides because they don't want to give guaranteed contracts to everybody or anybody. They know that football's going to football, and the Ravens are trying to prevent, by not guaranteeing anything, footballing them on Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson is trying to prevent footballing him.
I'm sorry, David. How dumb of me to think that the NFL will collude against a black quarterback. I've never seen that before in that league before.
This is not a racial issue, Mike.
No, but come on. There's been collusion in this league, and if they want to collude against Lamar Jackson, fine. But guess what? Joe Burrow is going to get that Deshaun Watson deal.
I will bet you right now that Joe Burrow does not get $230 million guaranteed. And this is not people not wanting to pay Lamar Jackson. The Ravens offered to pay Lamar Jackson exactly where he should be, which is higher than anybody and lower than Watson.
David, there is more guaranteed money for Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. It's not just that we're talking about Deshaun Watson here, because Lamar Jackson is looking at the entirety of the market, and the NFL teams are saying, well, wait a minute. If we did that with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, we're in big trouble if we give away a lot of guaranteed money. But I do ask you to consider for a minute, because I don't think we actually disagree, that the Ravens can be doing this brilliantly at business. And it doesn't mean that Lamar is wrong. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong that I want Lamar to get paid because the market has now been set and it's not his job to make sure that the owners control their spending. He should try to get as much as he can. It's what he's trying to do. And the part that's dirty about it, even though it's good business for the Ravens, is the Ravens know that this is going to cost any other team more than it costs them because none of them want to go guaranteed. And now they have to go guaranteed plus 2 first-round picks.
It's not that they don't want to go guaranteed. They don't want to go guaranteed at the Watson level. You're making it sound as though the Ravens have not even made Lamar Jackson an offer, and that's not true. They have made him an offer to, my guess is, to make him the second highest guaranteed quarterback ever.
David, what I am saying, though, is both sides are trying to prevent football from injuring their quarterback. He is a quarterback who is hurt the last couple of seasons. He plays a style that most people are afraid to guarantee money to. And he does it in a system where they don't know how and have never known how to evaluate him. They don't know how to evaluate that quarterback's value, period.
That's not right. They have evaluated him, and they do evaluate him, even with the fact that he missed 5 games the last 2 years. They do evaluate him that they would make him the second highest guaranteed quarterback in the National Football League. So I don't even understand what your point of view is. So the reason I said you were wrong is your point of view came out of being so pro-player. Mine is not being out of being pro-management. It's about explaining how it actually works during these negotiations. Forget the fact that he doesn't have an agent, because that's just, I happen to agree with that you can use a lawyer just as easily when you're at that caliber of player. You don't need an agent. As you know, in our business, agents try to drum up interest, try to figure out where you can go, what would be a good fit, what platforms would be a good fit that you would not otherwise have access to. In sports, I don't need Scott Boras to tell me that Carlos Correa is available or to help me value Carlos Correa. I do need an agent to tell me that I've got a player in Korea, or I have a young player in college, or a 3+ player, which means a young player in baseball, who is not even approaching the peak of his ability. That agents are good for. But when you're Lamar Jackson, you just need a lawyer. And don't kid yourself, he has a lawyer. He just doesn't have an agent, so he's paying hourly instead of a percentage of his deal. That's good business by Lamar Jackson, so I'm not criticizing that. But the Ravens have negotiated and made offers. He just wants to break Watson because he thinks he's better than Watson. But Haslam's Watson deal is not the bellwether deal.
David, you can be cold about these things, so I want to bring in Amin, who also has front office experience, because what I am saying, and I don't know what you would disagree here with, is that both things can be true. This can be brilliant as a business move by the Ravens, and Lamar's allowed to be insulted by it and hurt by it. The humanity of it is, I'm your prized player. Why are you making me see if someone else values me more than you value me? Shouldn't you value me the most?
Yeah, David, you opened with saying that Dan was emotional and was, making assumptions, and I don't think Dan was doing that. When you were doing your opening statement, I was looking at Dan, I was kind of cocking my eyebrow a little bit like, I don't think that's what Dan said yesterday. He said what he just said right now, which is it's totally understandable for Lamar Jackson to be insulted or to feel underappreciated, even if there is a strong business reason for the Ravens to approach the way they've approached. There's also stands to reason that players do track these things. Players do care. Players do think of this as a form of appreciation. We talked about it before in the NBA, obviously, because we have max deals. They can only pay you so much. But if, in theory, I paid one player.
You're so close. Power through it.
I can hear
you
it
are
in
having
there.
so much trouble.
I can hear it in
He
there.
doesn't have the talk back.
I don't have a mute button.
You got
doesn't
this.
have
You got
anything.
this.
Go ahead.
As soon as
can-
you
we're here
started
for you.
talking back here, I'm like, I can hear it in
You're
about 30
afraid
seconds.
of the fine,
No, you
right?
got
You're
it.
afraid of the $5 fine.
terrified.
The great ones sell their bodies not today.
Power
Shout out to
through
Mark
it.
Jackson.
Power through it.
There are players that if I told them, hey, I'm going to pay you $1 less than max, that is a massive affront. Not because a dollar means that much to them, but in their minds, you're telling me I'm not as good as that guy over there.
I'm so sorry that they get offended by getting $1 less than max.
Oh, Jesus.
What's the opposite of nominating something for a Suey? It was like the worst acting I've ever heard in my life.
Ass on.
I mean, I absolutely
What was that
understand.
impression? The man?
But when you're running a team, I mean, when you're making offers, you sit in the front office, and are you thinking about the respect level of the offer you're making to the player?
It depends on the player. I told the story yesterday about Channing Frye when he became a free agent, and for us, we negotiated hard. But what happened was, in the context of the negotiation, we stupidly allowed him the night to think about an offer, and overnight, 3 more deals got signed around the league by clearly lesser players. So at that point, his agent, who was Rob Pelinka, was like, "Look, guys, like that deal is a non-starter now. The market has moved, and so now we're up here. Now we still tried and fought and all that stuff and try to get the best possible deal that we could, but that's very different than for instance, a star player that same offseason, same offseason was Amari Stoudemire, and we gave him a max deal where the first 2 seasons were guaranteed 100%. The third year was 75% guaranteed based on if he played a certain amount of minutes in the first 2 years. The fourth year and the fifth year were 50% guaranteed if he played a certain amount of minutes in year 3 and year 4, et cetera, et cetera. A very fair deal for a guy who had a bunch of injury issues and was uninsurable, right? Meaning if he has a career-ending injury to either knee or because of his eye, you're on the hook, as opposed to usually 80% insurance picks up. And Amari looked at that deal and then went to New York and they gave him 100% guarantee, and that was it.
And you were okay because you valued the player a certain way, and you were not going to stray from the processes that you have to value players. That is how a front office works.